actually did start using words in the right way. That's all that matters. Yeah.
We know that the right on time argumentation of the word fact, because the custom is, we follow custom to say language names are not fact, but it's something, it's not nothing. So what is it? It's not a fact. What is it? Obviously, you're saying it, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
So if it's not a fact, then what is it?
Well, all there is to say about it is this kind of thing. If the individual passes enough tests, then we'll say you're using plus to mean addition, not quaddition. But of course it's true that if you were using quaddition, you'd actually be going on in just the same way. Yeah. But the thing is, we just don't bother about that in practice. In practice, if the child passes enough tests, uses the word right in enough cases, gives the right answer to enough addition sums, we say, you've got it, welcome in. And then we expect the child to go on agreeing with us, with the rest of us. And that is just a brute empirical fact, that we get this agreement in our responses, and everything else depends on that. Yep.
I think there's a problem here in that we can have a kid who's just ridiculously lucky and just always seems to get addition right even without understanding evil,
Right.
versus a child who understands the world of properly. There seems to be a big distinction between the two, and yet on this account, it doesn't.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah. So you'd think there's a distinction between the child that gets it right because they're lucky, and it's just a coincidence they're giving the right answers in all these cases. Yeah, and the child that gets it right for the right reasons, something like that. And the point here is that you can't make that distinction. That distinction depends on the idea that there's such a thing as getting it right for the right reason, right, on the right basis. And the point is that when you're in these basic uses of language, there is no basis. The giving of explanations has to come to an end somewhere. Here we hit bedrock, and the spade is turned. You can't keep giving explanations all the way down. It just stops rather sooner than you might have expected. Yeah? And if there's no explanation to be given of why you say 5 plus 7 is 12, no explanation to be given at all, that's just the words you produce, then you can't make that distinction between getting it right for the right reason and it just being lucky that you got it right. Yeah. 1, 2. Yeah. So can you take that from the top?
Isn't the distinction between getting right for the right reason and getting right for the wrong reason?
Yeah.
Is not so devastating, I think, because it sort of that sort of explains why how people acquire a skill for somebody where to follow.
That's something to do with how people acquire.
Like the additions, right?
Yep.
And then my day being addition and like really getting it right. So I think of it as like devastating, I guess, because we could study more those examples and give an explanation as to how people learn to pick up all roles by seeing that there's a distinction.
Well, I'm not sure I really follow. When we say if an individual passes enough tests, there's some kind of screening that we do at the start, right? When you test the child out in different cases. You might argue that with you guys when I say, what would you say is the semantic value of a truth table of a constant like and or, right? That's exactly what you're doing. Yeah. Just what you're saying, can you go on in the same way? But after a reasonable number of cases, you or I presumably have been through enough testing of our ability to add that anyone would say, okay, they've got it. Yeah. And that's all it is. There's no basis separating you and me. All that it comes to that we've grasped the technique is that we've given the right answers often enough.
I mean, but then there's no like internal basis.
There's no what, sorry?
I guess when I say that there's no internal basis.
Right, there's no internal basis.
Investigating the person's mind or into the person in general to see what is the basis in which he's making that behavior. We just need to know how external standards to whether or not they're important.
That's right. That's the picture. Yeah.
I guess like I just find it when I think not having an internal standard is devastating because then that explains how people first learn by doing conditions or they follow a blend if you do something then.
That's right. They're following blindly. And when you say it's not devastating, I mean, Wittgenstein and Kripke are going to say, that's right, it's not devastating. That's just what goes on. But it requires that you throw away the picture of there being a fact about you meaning one thing rather than another.
Okay, I mean, I'm not. Okay, sure.
Because that was the work that the internal thing was doing, making it the case that you mean one thing rather than another. Once you throw that away and say, well, we can do without that, then you lose the idea that there's a fact of the matter about meaning plus rather than quas, because all your responses would have been the same if you meant quas. Yeah.
Back to kind of judgment question. What if there was a virgin who, I think who understands addition, but just makes a lot of mistakes. And so
Yes.
like, I'm like that. Like, what's 1 plus 3? Like, oh no, 3
Yes,
is 3.
right.
Like, how can they counter a case like that? Whereas the kid, like, he can say he doesn't know the meaning of plus, the meaning of addition is useless.
That's very good. I think, is this right? I'm not dead sure what to say about that. Someone who seems to understand the word all right, but they're actually just quite clumsy in using it. I mean, I don't mean that. I don't mean that negatively. Right. I guess that you would think, well, this notion of passes enough tests has room for some complexity in it. That if we take you in a case where you say 1 plus 2, well, that's 4, and then we say, no, wait a minute, go back over that, do it slowly, then you will get it right. Give you enough time. You see what I mean? It makes sense that someone might be kind of panicky around numbers, but once you give them enough time, they should be able to get it right, or see that error when it's pointed out to them. Actually, that's very interesting. One thing to do with the child that seems to be getting it right, luckily, maybe one way you can make the contrast there is to try to rattle the child and say, the child says 1 plus 2, and you say 1 plus 2, and the child says 3, and you say, no, it's 4, and then you see the child stands on the ground. Right? Yeah, that's kind of fun to do, that kind of thing. Yeah, I do know what you're saying. The point is, there's nothing deeper in the child for which you're probing. All you're looking at is something relatively superficial. The particular, if you pass the test, you're good. The test itself might be a little bit complex, though. It might involve allowing people to correct you or people to challenge you and seeing how well you stand your ground. No. I agree. I agree. Your point is definitely good. That well, one of the things that makes it natural to think that we're probing for something underlying here is that complexity in the tests. But really, the whole point of the Kripke-Wittgenstein picture here is to say we have to take the surface appearances at face value. All that's going on is the stuff in the surface. Just describe that. Yeah. Well, I'm actually inclined to blast through a little bit here. We could just pause this and then hold over until next time. But I'm inclined to see if I can get through many of the points I wanted to hear. So this is all right up to this point. I mean, you see what I'm saying anyhow, or what Kripke-Wittgenstein is saying. How about that? And it is pretty wild. I agree. If you think that, then I agree. Okay, let's see. We may have to hold this over for next time. It doesn't matter much if we do, but let's see. There's a classic puzzle for Wittgenstein's picture here, which is the idea of a Born-Crusoe. That's to say, well, one way to start getting at it is to say, can't you make sense of a person being right in what he says and everyone else is wrong? Doesn't that make sense? Can Wittgenstein make sense of that? But there's also the idea of a Born-Crusoe. That's to say, and you can't literally be born on a desert island, but you can assume that you're born and almost immediately afterwards your mother sails away and is never seen by you again, and you spend your life on this desert island. Now that seems to make sense, right? You could have somebody spent their life in this desert island, making a hut, getting to know the goats, having a little farm, and maybe they keep a diary. Maybe they write their diary and you come upon them, and they have to invent their own language, of course, but just by coincidence, it looks just like regular English. And when we pick them up, when the boat finally comes to pick them up, you look at the diary and it's full of long ruminations. The wretchedness of my life here is unimaginable, and so on. It looks just like regular English. And doesn't that make sense? Couldn't you have someone like that outside any of this context of rule following or applause? Here's what Kripke says about this. Kripke says, if we think of Crusoe as following rules, we're taking him into our community and applying our criteria for rule following to him. So that the discussion so far need not mean that a physically isolated individual can't be said to follow rules, is rather that an individual considered in isolation, whether or not they're physically isolated, can't be said to be following rules. So if you think of saying, oh, he's got it, he means addition by the plus sign, if you think of that as a kind of applause, what's going on here is we're reading Crusoe's journal and we're saying, my God, look at that, well done, Crusoe. You see what I mean? The ascription of meaning to Crusoe is being done in the context of this activity of us regarding him as one of us, saying, look how well the usage matches up to the way we use words. So the temptation here is always to read Kripke as if he's giving a straight solution to the skeptical problem and saying what makes it true that Sally means addition by plus is that she gives the responses we agree with in enough cases, or what makes it true that 57 plus 68 is 125 is that we all agree that that's the right answer. But if you try to give that kind of account, it would be hopeless because you run right back into these plus problems. And what makes it true that Sally means addition by the plus sign can't be just agreement in some bunch of responses, because that would be consistent with our meaning quas by the plus. It would be consistent with us all meaning quas by the plus. Is rather got to be that we're thinking here of Crusoe in the context of a skeptical solution, where we are taking Crusoe in and saying, well, you're one of us. That's all that's going on when you say Crusoe means addition by the plus sign. The striking remark in that by Wittgenstein, if language is to be a means of communication, I think we quoted this earlier, there must be agreement not only in definitions, but also, queer as this may sound, in judgments. So, we don't have very much time, so let me... So the suggestion here is that what we're doing with statements like x means plus by the cross, or if he means plus by the cross, x should say 125, we're not looking for facts that make those true. And it's similar to how you'd explain what goes on with good morning, or saying when it's right to applaud. You don't describe when it's right to applaud. These things should be given a description of when it's right to applaud or when it's right to say good morning, but not by giving facts that make them true. And similarly, the use of signs like x means plus by the cross, or if you mean plus by the cross, then you should say 125 when you ask what's 68 plus 57. That shouldn't be dealt with. That should be dealt with by saying when it's right to say these things, not by looking for facts. Now the thing is, that means that there isn't any fact of the matter about whether it's true that if he means plus by the cross, x should say 125 when asked for the answer to 68 plus 57. Right? That's an implication. There's no fact of the matter about that. If he means plus by the cross, then you should say 125 when asked for the answer to 68 plus 57. So presumably, that means that there isn't any fact of the matter about whether 68 plus 57 is 125. Presumably that's going to have that implication. I mean, if there isn't a fact of the matter about whether it's true that 68 plus 57 is 125, given the meanings of the signs, then how can there be a fact of the matter about whether 68 plus 57 is 125? So if you say there aren't facts of the matter about meaning, it seems like you're going to have to say that there aren't any facts of the matter about anything at all. And that point applies to language generally. You could put just anything there, and there wouldn't be a fact of the matter about whether it's true, given the meanings, so there wouldn't be a fact of the matter about whether the thing itself is so. Yep.
So, I understand this about liquid, but does Wittgenstein make any sort of distinctions with mathematics? Like, is there a form of the number where 68 plus 57 doesn't equal 125, or
No.
is math just now like a posteriori?
I don't know that it's a posteriori. The a posteriori would suggest there is a fact of the matter, but you just have to use your senses to find out about it. Yeah. But it's not something special about maths. It's something about anything you can talk about.
So math is like
Again, it's a little bit mind-bending what's going on here. When you talk about a social construction, that suggests there's a fact of the matter about what we're talking about. We're just talking about the social construction. You see, it wouldn't be right to say good morning is a social construction. It's just, it's not a thing at all. That's not the right way to think of it. So what's going on here is that we're losing the notion of a fact. There could be facts about a social construction, if you see what I mean. It doesn't even have the dignity of a social construction. Yeah. It looks as though what's happening is that we're losing the very existence of a fact-stating use of language. And on that bombshell,